There's a moment, right before you speak, right before you act, when your entire life shifts and you don't even notice it. You say yes when you mean no. You smile when you feel disrespected. You hold back when everything in you wants to step forward. That's the moment you give away your power, not in a dramatic collapse, but quietly, slowly, subtly. It happens in small choices, in tiny reactions, in habits you think are harmless, but they're draining you. You weren't born powerless, but you've been trained to be agreeable, trained to seek comfort, to avoid conflict, to silence your edge until you forgot it was even there. And that's the danger, because the world won't ask you to remember who you are. It will gladly let you forget. So this is not a pep talk. It's not motivation. This is a mirror, a warning, and maybe, if you let it, a turning point. You apologize too much, not for real mistakes, but for existing, for taking space, for having a voice. You say sorry when someone bumps into you. You say sorry before sharing your thoughts. You shrink before you even speak. And the world loves it. Because every time you over-apologize, you teach people that your presence is negotiable, that your words need permission, that your confidence is fragile. So they treat you accordingly. But power doesn't apologize for existing. It doesn't beg for acceptance. It stands, it speaks, and it lets silence say the rest. When you make your self-worth dependent on how comfortable you make others feel, you lose. You lose presence. You lose clarity. You lose you. So the next time you feel the word sorry rising up your throat, pause. Ask yourself, did I actually do something wrong? Or am I just afraid of being too much? Because you weren't meant to be small. You've just been conditioned to believe that your bigness is a problem, and it's not. You over-explain yourself. You feel the need to justify every move you make, to soften every boundary, to make sure no one misunderstands you, or thinks you're harsh, or labels you as difficult. But here's the truth. When you constantly explain yourself, you're not clarifying, you're asking for permission, and people can feel that. You're trying to be understood, but in the process, you're training the world to question you, to second-guess your words, to expect a reason before they give you respect. A man who respects himself doesn't explain his every decision. He lets his actions speak, and he's okay with being misunderstood, because his validation doesn't come from outside. The next time you feel the urge to over-explain, pause, breathe, say less, and watch how your silence begins to say more. You wait for permission to lead. You don't move until someone says it's okay. You don't act until you've been chosen. You sit in silence, hoping someone else takes charge. Because deep down, you've learned to believe that initiative is arrogance. But it's not. Leadership isn't about being the loudest. It's not about having a title or demanding attention. It's about seeing what needs to be done and doing it, even when no one asks, even when no one claps. When you wait, you hand over your power to people who aren't ready for it, and they'll run your life for you, badly. Power is quiet movement, unannounced, self-directed. The man who acts first, speaks last, and moves without waiting. He doesn't need to control others. He controls himself, and that's why he leads. So ask yourself, are you holding back because you're humble or because you're scared? You rescue people who didn't ask to be saved. You step in, you fix, you sacrifice, not because they can't do it themselves, but because you've built your worth around being needed. You confuse love with responsibility, and without realizing it, you become the emotional janitor of everyone around you. But here's the cost. The more you rescue, the more people expect you to. They stop solving their own problems. They stop respecting your boundaries. And slowly, you become exhausted, resentful, and invisible. A man who constantly saves others often forgets how to save himself. Compassion is powerful, but martyrdom is weakness in disguise. You're not supposed to carry every burden. You're supposed to carry your own with strength and clarity, and give others the dignity to carry theirs. Ask yourself, am I helping, or am I avoiding my own emptiness by pouring into theirs? Because giving your time, your energy, your life, without limits, is not generosity. It's self-erasure. You hide your truth to keep the peace. You say what's safe. You do what's expected. You wear the mask every day and tell yourself it's strength. But silence isn't always wisdom. Sometimes it's surrender. When you suppress what you really feel, what you really want, what you really are, you become a stranger to yourself. And a man who forgets himself can never lead, love, or live fully. These subtle habits, they don't look dangerous. They don't scream weakness, but they shape who you are when no one's watching. And over time, they create a version of you that feels smaller, softer, invisible. You weren't made to be soft. You were made to be steady, clear, unshakable. And that man, he's still in you. Every time you choose honesty over comfort, every time you choose silence over apology, every time you act without waiting, you take your power back, piece by piece, day by day. And if that's the path you're on, you're not alone. This is the IronStoic way.